Um, Tia, I just want to thank you for your words and for sharing the on the ground report from Louisville. Um, and want to acknowledge um, the importance of us being able to learn what is happening there. The unique way in which um, the police are utilizing almost openly some of the neo-fascist white supremacists in targeting and attacking and killing organizers there is not known enough on a national scale. And that directly links to the attempted coup, insurrection, whatever you want to call what happened at the Capitol last week, and that those same bodies um, um, are represented there. We know that because of the reports coming out, that those are the same white supremacist organizations, the same neo-fascist organizations, the same cops. There are cops there are children of judges, there are CEOs, and that movement is linked, and it is it's a response to the massive millions of people who have been mobilized over the course of the last 6 years, who have been protesting and demanding justice and refusing to live in silence, and to bury the reality of police impunity that has reigned without question in the dominant imagination for decades. And some could argue since the founding of modern US police forces. I think it is, I'm in Chicago, and so our reality is a little bit different, where we certainly do have white supremacists, Proud Boys, European Identity Movement members who have protested here in the city and have organized to protest against our state's attorney, who was elected as a response to the movement unseating Anita Alvarez, who was our former state's attorney. And that particular state's attorney, like all of them prior, was a part of the system that gave CPD carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. And without question, just rubber stamped any narrative, any recommendations for charges that came through. And the movement unseated Anita Alvarez. Anita Alvarez was a part of the cover-up of the video of Laquan McDonald, was a part of the cover-up of the video of Ronald Johnson, was a part of targeting people who came forward with felony crimes in effort to terrorize people into silence. And so it was a year ago that white supremacists marched openly with members of the Chicago Police Department and the Fraternal Order of Police downtown in Chicago. And so those white supremacist elements, we know, have been mobilizing and been organizing across the country. Some of what really resonates with the fight for justice for Breonna Taylor speaks very resonantly with the fight for justice for Miss Anjanette Young, who here in Chicago was at home, had come home from work, is a social worker, and police conducted a similar raid on her house. And it was not a no-knock raid, and there's been discussion, in the media and in our city council around ending no-knock raids, which they should, but it was not a no-knock raid, and most raids that are done by CPD are not no-knock because in effect, they are all no-knock, even if technically they don't subscribe to that definition, because they knock and then barge right in. So that distinction is irrelevant. And that's what they did to Anjanette Young, looking for someone else. And that video footage, she was able to leak to the media. After a year of suppression by the city, including suing her and filing sanctions against her, she was able to leak it to the media to expose the fact that they held her naked for over 40 minutes, and would not allow her any dignity. And it was only through happenstance that she also was not murdered like Breonna Taylor in her own home by the police. So in honoring Breonna Taylor's life, we are fighting in Chicago to end all home raids, because it's not just the no-knock. The no-knock represents 2% because it's a technicality that is irrelevant. It's to end all home raids, because of the thousands that happen throughout the year, which is approximately 2,000 raids that happen by CPD. None of them produce anything that they put in the media that they're looking for. The majority are wrong. The majority are of children, are of people who have absolutely nothing to do with the supposed crime that they're investigating. And instead, what it in effect does is it further enacts the performance of occupation in our neighborhoods. This is what occupying forces do.
Right.
And it terrorizes our people. So while I actually wasn't going to talk about this, but it links so directly, and it's important that we make these links, that this also is a part of the fight. And in Chicago, we were successful in convicting a police officer, Jason Van Dyke, for the murder of Laquan McDonald. He was convicted of murder, but that's not enough. And it took a huge movement. It took us being in the street consistently. It took fighting. It took all of the threats that we all receive, and it took maintaining that pressure in order to, for the first time in the city's history, be able to win a conviction for an on-duty police officer for a murder of a Black person, that had never existed before. But that's not enough, because what we see continuing is raids on homes like Anjanette Young, like what happened with Breonna Taylor, that very well could have meant that Anjanette Young would have been killed. And what we see is a continued terrorism in our communities. And in this moment where we are in the pandemic, and the United States has produced, is on record to produce the world's first trillionaire, and where the 800 individuals who are billionaires in this country have amassed record wealth, while 60 million people in this country have been forced to file unemployment. The life expectancy for all people in the United States is, for the first time in decades, decreasing. And so while we are in these multiple crises and we see the response of the growing militarization of the right wing, of the incipient fascist forces, we must reaffirm and recommit ourselves to this work and to this struggle, because they are largely in part responding to the movement, responding to the fact that 26 million people took to the streets this summer. It is a response to our success in building power and consciousness. And so we have no other choice but to continue to fight. This isn't a luxury. This isn't something that people are choosing to do because they don't have anything else to do. This is literally about our lives. This is literally about preventing the murders of additional Breonna Taylors and George Floyd's, and preventing the additional shootings of people like Jacob Blake, who thankfully is alive. And so that means that, like King, we have to continue organizing in the midst of this violence, and we will win.